Silver stocks at the LBMA came out yesterday, the 5th business day of each month, and the monthly silver stocks are down another 11.7 million ounces to 840,347,000 ounces. That is a 2.5% of the movable silver float, because 370.9 million of those ounces belong to the ETF SLV, which, by the way, has not risen in holdings since silver has bottomed. The paper traders are still out of this market, and we want to keep them out as long as possible and leave it up to the stackers to move the spot price. And also, if we look in New York, out of London and into New York, the registered silver supplies stopped draining for a little bit, for about 6 weeks, but they are draining now again, and they are down to new lows at just 33.05 million ounces, despite the rise in the spot price, which should, all things being equal, stop the flow of silver out of the COMEX, except that it's not this time, which means that the silver bugs are keeping up the pressure, which is exactly what we want to see, and the trend line down since silver squeeze remains very much intact. And now we're going to go into the Zoltan Pozsar piece, which is making the rounds in the gold and silver community. It makes a lot of sense. I'm not always on the side of Zoltan Pozsar, but he is a very intriguing character, especially coming from where he comes from, which is Credit Suisse. He understands a lot about the monetary system that a lot of the standard Keynesians at Credit Suisse do not understand. So let's read what he says, and it has to do with oil and with Putin, and I'll explain why it does make some rudimentary sense here. It starts here by saying that President Putin probably won't like that. That meaning Russian oil being stored in the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve of the United States. Out of principle, either he doesn't want that, Russian oil shall not age in giant underground salt caverns along the U.S. Gulf Coast. Or if it were to, then payments will be accepted only in gold, not dollars or rupees. Now, to be clear, Zoltan Pozsar is not stating a fact here. He is speculating, and that must be kept in mind. Now, he understands that this seems a little bit far-fetched. This is nonsense, you say, he continues. No, it is not nonsense, he says. Look at the tit-for-tat measures so far. You invade Ukraine, I freeze your foreign exchange reserves, you freeze my foreign exchange reserves, I make you pay for gas in rubles. The West boycotts my euros, I'll ship it east to China and India, which is buying them. The West caps the price of euros to try to stem the flow of income into Russia. Let them, but I'll make them pay in gold. The cap of $60 per barrel, which Europe and the United States are seeking to impose on Russian oil artificially, administratively, equals the price of a gram of gold at current market prices. Let's imagine this set up as a peg. The G7, led by the US, effectively pegs the US dollar to euros at $60 per barrel. In turn, Russia pegs euros to gold at the same price, a gram of gold, for a barrel of euros. And then what Pozsar says is that Russia could offer more oil in exchange for paying in gold terms rather than in dollar terms. Objections to this have come up on Twitter, and they make sense. Why would Putin try to pay in gold and give double the amount of oil when he can just sell half the amount of oil in dollars and then buy his own gold with dollars? The answer is it's very difficult for Russia to buy anything with dollars these days because of the international sanctions. So, by putting sanctions on the dollar itself, the dollar becomes devalued for Russia because they can't use it to buy stuff. So that gives Putin an incentive to take payment for oil in gold terms instead. And now, if he takes, for example, 2 barrels of oil, he sells 2 barrels of oil in exchange for 1 gram of gold, that means that people on the international exchange sell their dollars to buy gold, to buy oil, Russian oil, at half the price. And that changes the arbitrage between dollar and gold and doubles gold prices in dollar terms. By doing this, Putin can collapse the US dollar in gold terms, and by doing that, collapses the dollar against everything. Because, as I've said over and over and over again, the only thing that gives the dollar value to exchange in terms of anything is the fact that it can be exchanged for gold. So if you lower the dollar's exchange value in gold terms, you lower its purchasing power in terms of everything. If Putin understands this, this is what he will do, and he'll be able to destroy the dollar's purchasing power on the international markets, and also for consumers in the US markets and everyone else who holds dollars around the world. And so Pozar says this in his own words, that in order to maintain futures positions, short futures positions on the COMEX, gold cannot be used as a money. Now, there is no guarantee that Putin is actually going to do this, but eventually someone somewhere on this green earth is going to pull the rug out from under the dollar, and the rug that is under the dollar currently is a rug of gold. And when gold goes up, the public goes after what? Of course, silver.